Alrighty, y'all. So welcome back to my third video of the day. And as promised, I am going to be starting out with my personal life journey up to this point as soon as I finished up my travel series, which I just finished earlier today. So here we go. We're going to roll right on into, I guess, my life journey so far, what I've experienced, what I've been through. And I'll be honest with you, I've been through one heck of a lot, all right? And so the theme for essentially this video right now is, to be grateful for every single thing that you have, because as proven through my life, and I'm sure a lot of y'all's lives as well, is that, things can happen and things can change very, very quickly. Essentially, within a snap of a finger or like a blink of an eye, things can be going great and then all of a sudden just be flipped a complete 180 and take a very, very, very quick turn, and things can, obviously take a quick different route and just completely change from right out under you. So, with that being said, when at the age of 3, I ended up having to have a major surgery on my head that essentially could have led to either me living or me dying. Okay, so the malfunction that I had was called Chiari malformation, and I'll let y'all look that up. Okay, but like I said at the time, right around 2002, 2003. It was still sort of a new disease. It was still a very new thing that doctors and scientists were still trying to research. Because all of a sudden, kids were just starting to come out with just starting to come down with it, and it was really kind of a freaky thing. And my parents were telling me how I would spend days and days and days and eventually months on end, just essentially screaming in pain on the floor, and being a little essentially baby at the time. They didn't really know. They were just thought oh, maybe it's just a tiny little fit he's having and he'll eventually grow out of it. But as time went on, it just kept happening and happening and happening, and I never grew out of it. And so I got to a point where we were like, okay, maybe we should go to the doctor, have them check it out, maybe get a couple x-rays, see if there's, everything's okay. And so once we did that, lo and behold, I just had this very, very, at the time, kind of rare and very severe issue in my head, kind of that back of my head, neck area. And so that called for immediate surgery over at the Boston Children's Hospital. And like I was saying, I could have, the worst case scenario, the extreme worst case scenario is that I could have died from it. All right. And then the best case scenario is obviously what's going on right now. Everything's normal. Everything's great, which obviously, like I said, it's happening right now. So we're obviously glad that happened. But what happens with a lot of cases, especially nowadays, is that, the doctors take care of the initial stage of it. They do the operation. It's taken care of for several years. But once, the patient reaches about the middle school to very early high school age, the same symptoms come back in a second wave. And the patient has to go back in for surgery and has to clear everything out yet again. And after that, the patient would be okay. So thankfully, my surgery went fantastic, and I never had any of those kind of second stage symptoms, and we're rocking and rolling. So that was just the first time I've been in a hospital. So after that, I've had to go back into the hospital multiple times for multiple different reasons, including, my eyesight. I had a lot of issues with my eyesight that I needed fixes on. And then I also had a major, major issue with my hearing. For a lot of times, I had to go in for ear checkups, eye checkups. Okay, and there were a lot of times when I had to have operations on my ears, not only to fix both my eardrums, but to also get a whole bunch of ear tubes put in so I could actually hear somewhat decent. So if you ever hear me saying what, I mean, that might be why, but I can tell you right now, it's a heck of a lot better than it was 10 years ago. That's for darn sure. So we're rocking and rolling yet again. So I definitely spent most of my childhood in a doctor's office or in a hospital, which was pretty unfortunate. But the plus side of it is that now I'm doing a heck of a lot better. I'm very, very healthy. I'm definitely keeping active any way that I can, which is definitely important for each and every single one of you to maintain as well. Okay, and you will only thank yourself later in life. All right, and so for a while, a lot other than all the hospital and doctor visits, I was doing good. I was doing okay in school. I was definitely a shy kid. Definitely kept to myself a lot, and a big role model in my life was not only my grandfather, but my grandfather had to fight in the Vietnam War. Sorry about that. Got really bright for a second. But my grandfather got drafted into the Vietnam War, had to obviously fight. He did one tour, and when he was over there, he met this gentleman. The two of them became absolutely best friends, and essentially like brothers. And it was really neat how the two of them just absolutely bonded right away, and so he became another role model for me as well. And so I will get into their story later on because it's just an absolutely incredible story about how they met, all the trials and obstacles that they went through, not only individually but together as well. But I'll set that story aside for the time being, so we can kind of move this current story along. All right, and so the two of them were very, very, very influential in my life, in my well-being. And if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today. And so one quick side note was that my grandfather was over in Vietnam when they sprayed Agent Orange over in the countryside which was like essentially a chemical that was supposed to kill the vegetation so that the United States troops could easily obtain the opposing forces and do what they need to do, which kind of helped out a tiny bit. It killed some of the vegetation, but the problem was that since the chemical was basically everywhere at that point, a lot of the United States troops and the opposing troops breathed all those chemicals in, and over the course of their lives, essentially destroyed their lungs. And so that's unfortunately what happened to my grandfather, was that at the age of, I think, like 61, he came down with stage 4 lung cancer, and he was down in, him and my grandmother rented a place down in Florida for as long as I can remember. And so what happened was that I remember my grandmother, my grandfather, down in Florida, they were able to, and my grandfather, noticed he was like really sore. He wasn't really feeling that great. And so he went to a local doctor down there and said, hey, look, something's not right. I'm definitely not feeling the way I should be. I'm really sore right now, and I've been taking a lot of Advil the last few weeks, and it's not really helping. What should I do? And the doctor looked at him and was like, hey, you need to get back to Massachusetts, go to your primary care doctor, and get checked out right away, because something's not the way it should be. And so, a few days later, they packed everything up, hopped on a plane, came back to Massachusetts. And I remember when they came back to my house, I was still asleep. And so I was 6 years old at the time now. And so they came to my room. They were like, Jason, we're home. And I jumped out of bed, and I was like, Grammy, and I called my grandfather Bubba. So I was like, Grammy, Bubba, you're home. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. And then just to find out that a couple days later, I had to watch my grandfather get taken away on an ambulance from me. Just to later find out that he had stage 4 lung cancer. And by the time that we received the news of it, it was basically too late, and the doctors tried what they could, but he basically had no hope left, and that he, like, no matter what, he was going to pass away. And so, he was in the hospital for quite a while, and my mom, my sister, and I kept visiting him at the hospital, and he got moved around to a couple different healthcare facilities and a whole couple different hospitals. No matter where he went, like, we were there visiting him, like, all the time. And so it got to a point where the doctors were like, "Hey, there's still nothing we can do," and his conditions kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so it got to a point where he was put on hospice and only had, again, at that point, only a few days, a few weeks, a few hours, to live. And so the time kept progressing, things didn't really go too well. And so on Mother's Day, I ended up watching my grandfather pass away right in front of me. And being at the age of 6, I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, what is death? I didn't really understand death. I'm like, yeah, Bubba's coming back tomorrow. Like, he'll be fine. But my parents kept trying to tell me, like, no, he's gone. You just watched him pass away, and he's gone for good. Like, he's not coming back. And so I went, we had his wake, and I walked in there. I'm like, oh my goodness, Bubba's right there. Hi, Bubba. Hi, Bubba. How you doing, Bubba? And I looked all around me, everybody was crying, and I'm like, what are you crying about? Like, Bubba's right there, and I don't know what's going on. And so eventually one of my relatives picked me and my sister up, so we didn't have to be there all day. And as soon as we got to the other side of town, it finally clicked in my mind. Again, 6 years old, didn't fully understand what was going on. But once we got across town, I actually realized, wait, look, he's gone for good. What they're saying is true. I won't ever be able to see him again. And so that just absolutely destroyed me. And I lost it, okay? I started bawling. I was like, I won't be able to see my superhero ever again, okay? My grandfather was like my living legend for me. And so I lost it. We had to pull over for like over an hour while I couldn't control myself. I was just so angry. I was so upset. And so as time progressed, we had his funeral that was held at a huge church in my town. Okay, this church is just absolutely ginormous. And this place was packed, okay? From the very front to the very back of the church was just absolutely full. And there were a ton of people still standing. Just because my grandfather was one of the most respectful and most caring individuals that I have ever known and will ever know. And, a lot of people had so much respect for my grandfather because my grandfather treated people as they were. Okay, he had no negative opinions or thoughts about anybody, and he loved everybody as they were, and he always met them where they were at in life, and he always could find a way to relate to every single person. And that is something that I continue to strive to be. And no matter where you see me, I am like living that dream right there. Like, I don't, like, whoever comes up to me, I treat them with the utmost respect, no matter who they are, because I want to be not only be their friend, but somebody that they can look up to. And so during the funeral, I remember reaching out and touching my grandfather's casket. I remember saying, Bubba, where are you going, and why are you going without me? And that is actually a very, very clear image all of these years later. And, like I said on my about my trip to Spain, was that, I spent my whole entire trip to Spain trying to figure out, why did he go? And why did he pass away right in front of me? And so that was another time in my life where I just really struggled just to find out who I was and why everything was going on, okay? Because, within pretty much a 15-minute span now, I've described to you how the first 6 years of my life, I've spent in a lot of hospitals, in a lot of doctors' rooms, a lot of doctors' offices, and my, childhood superhero had just died right in front of me. I'm like, why is all this happening to me within such a short period of time? Like, come on, like I've been getting dealt so many bad cards, and I'm like, and then I asked myself, I'm like, it can't really get any worse, right? And so with that being said, I'm going to end this video right here, and I'm going to continue this series later on, okay? So be sure to tune in to my next personal life update, okay? I really want you guys to join me on this journey, because this journey is like something that needs to be watched, and it needs to be heard. And, you know, I want you, if you're going through something like this, keep watching, okay? Because, you know, no matter what kind of obstacle we're facing in life, it can be overcome, okay? So that's where my stories and my personal experiences will help you out greatly, okay? Because in later videos, I'll really start getting into more detail about my life and then how eventually I've overcome those crazy obstacles, okay? So it's all a part of the story. Everything will be a part of like the greater puzzle. So make sure you tune in, okay? This will be an extremely exciting time for us. So until I get to talk to you next, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and peace out from the Steady Dream Team. All right? Catch y'all soon.